You will find with a bit of research that cannabis is often used by people without any problem or concern. People who are artists, musicians, performers, sports stars, as well as philosophers, inventors, scientists, doctors, engineers, architects, lawyers, judges, politicians, and people from just about every field, discipline, profession, and background imaginable. The evidence of its harmlessness is in the list of those who have used cannabis, and it's quite impressive, but it's much too long to record here. Should Barack Obama, Steve Jobs, and Bob Dylan, along with all the other sports stars and musicians and artists of every kind, be condemned or fined or imprisoned for their cannabis use? Would you arrest these people if you could? Were their accomplishments not valid because of their cannabis use? Were they a threat or danger to our society because of their cannabis use? Aside from the incredible futility of all this wasted energy and effort, another issue is, of course, that the laws and the legal actions against cannabis and cannabis users are a serious violation of both civil and human rights in how and when these laws are enforced. Not only do we have this law without any victim or legitimate purpose against cannabis and cannabis users in place, to make things even worse, adding to the injustice, the law is selectively enforced. Many people from the more well-to-do parts of our society use cannabis without much fear or chance of being arrested. Enforcement focuses on certain neighborhoods and certain people. A man walking through his affluent neighborhood is much less likely of being harassed, questioned, searched, and arrested for possession of marijuana than a man walking through his less affluent or poor neighborhood. If by some freak accident one of these wealthier, well-connected, and protected users is arrested, he or she, of course, can pay for and expect a much different outcome in court than the man or woman without funds and position. It is a well-documented fact that some people, poor blacks and Latinos especially, are being arrested for and punished more severely for marijuana possession than other people, wealthy whites in particular, by a large margin, although the same studies also show that marijuana use is just as high, equally spread throughout all demographics of our society. This is only one of several civil and human rights that are being violated. There is much that could also be said about the right to trade freely, a fundamental right in any free society, and the right to access to needed medicines. We could go on here looking at the problems, injustices, hypocrisies, harmful results, wasted resources, wasted energy, and wasted lives that are the result of the prohibition of cannabis. We can consider the millions of people unjustly incarcerated and filling our prisons. There are a multitude of negative and harmful consequences associated with this ongoing prohibition, not because of the cannabis or the cannabis users, but because of the prohibition and the laws against cannabis. There are literally hundreds and hundreds of links to information that back up the claims that I make. And many, many voices that also back the call for legalization. Several states and now even whole countries are moving towards ending the war against cannabis users. It has been declared a violation of basic human rights in Mexico just recently, for instance. It is evident and demonstrable that the laws against cannabis are by far more harmful to not only the individual caught with it, but to our entire society and our judicial system in particular. Much more than any harm that is caused by cannabis. It is very disruptive and dangerous when a society has no respect for their judicial system. A judicial system that imposes and maintains unfair, unjust, and unreasonable laws that create a problem where none would have otherwise existed. Indeed, a law that actually keeps people from something that they so badly want, as in the case of medical marijuana and hemp, we even need. It is evident in the war on cannabis that the truly harmful thing here is not the cannabis, but the laws against the cannabis and the ongoing prosecution and persecution of those who use it. The real crime where cannabis is concerned is being committed by the government and those that support the government's position against cannabis and who carry out the persecution and the prosecution of cannabis users. The damage, crime, and social disruption that is being committed by those who are disrupting lives and needlessly filling our prisons over the use of a harmless, highly valued, medically recognized, and much appreciated herb. Law and justice are, of course, not the same things. Laws have been supported, allowed, and even encouraged great injustice in our world. The work of a society, perhaps the most important work in a society, is to ensure that the laws of that people are fair and just. Laws that are fair and just, or not, define a culture and a society. They define both the institution created by the people and the individual person involved in each and every instance and action. In historical studies, we measure both nations and individuals by their understanding of and defense and promotion of justice, real justice. And it's a justice we've all agreed on thousands of years ago. This justice remains as delicate and precious as it ever was, and just as much in need of being respected and protected as it ever was and always is. We know justice, but can we live just lives? Can we have just laws, just governments, and just nations? These are the questions, and this is the challenge. We are in a unique time and place. Our area here, around Asheville in particular, has been polled, and even in fairly conservative publications like the Citizen Times, the results showed that 70% of the people are favoring legalization of cannabis. It is indeed common knowledge that a good majority of our residents approve the legalization of marijuana. Our community is informed and aware of the real issues concerning cannabis, the injustice and harmful consequences of the laws against cannabis, and the cost and futility of the ongoing efforts to arrest and convict our neighbors for this victimless crime. Victimless, that is, if we don't count the one that has been arrested. It is well known that many people in our community, the famous and the influential, as well as the humble and less obvious, use marijuana. Our artists, our carpenters, our waiters and chefs, our brewers, our hotel workers, our hotel owners, our mechanics, gardeners, doctors, teachers, people that work for the city, even some of our politicians in our community have been known to use marijuana. In fact, just about everybody either uses marijuana, or they have at some time used it, or they know someone who does. Marijuana, if it were legal, would be just as well accepted, appreciated, and enjoyed as, say, beer. Again, I don't like comparing the two, but to drive the point home, we know that using cannabis is certainly as harmless as drinking beer. In fact, I'm quite sure that if it was legalized, it would be a huge and very profitable industry in our town, causing even less of a problem than the alcohol that we sell and consume. We must ask ourselves then, why are we punishing these people that we all know are not deserving of being punished? Why are we punishing people for something that is of itself causing no harm to the individual or to the society? What have they done that is made better by punishing them? How is our community served by punishing them? What are the results of punishing them? Where is the benefit in punishing them? We also need to ask ourselves, what is the harm that is being done by punishing them? Our federal, state, and city legislators are responsible for changing the laws on cannabis. They have the power to change the laws. Our police and sheriffs are sworn to uphold the law that is commonly understood, that they have been directed by city leaders, towards leniency and have been instructed to go easy on cannabis users. That, anyway, is the word on the street. It has been openly stated by city leaders. Our courts, however, are still prosecuting and punishing a rather large number of marijuana users in ways and manners that are unfair, unjust, and way out of proportion to the crime. Members of our community are being taken from us and are being treated as people who have done something dreadfully wrong, yet the courts cannot show any real harm or actual damage done by these people. Only a law that has been broken, while the real and obvious harm is to our community by the prohibition. It is hurt and broken by the continued enforcement and punishment of cannabis users.